Hello, this is Cherie, reading James and the Giant Peach, Chapter 21. Whoops, better find it. There's Chapter 20. Oh, here we go, Chapter 21. Why, it's absolutely brilliant, cried the old green grasshopper when James had explained his plan. The boy's a genius, the centipede announced. Now I can keep all my boots on after all. Oh, I shall be pecked to death, wailed the poor earthworm. Of course you won't. I will, I know I will, and I won't even be able to see them coming for me because I have no eyes. James went over and put an arm gently around the earthworm's shoulders. I won't let them touch you, he said. I promise I won't. But we've got to hurry. Look down there. There were more sharks than ever now around the peach. The water was boiling with them. There must have been 90 or 100 at least. And to the travelers up on top, it certainly seemed as though the peach were sinking lower and lower into the water. Action stations, James announced. Jump to it. There's not a moment to lose. He was the captain now, and everyone knew it. They would do whatever he told them. All hands below deck except Earthworm, he ordered. Yes, yes, they all said eagerly as they scuttled into the tunnel entrance. Come in, let's hurry. And you, centipede, James shouted. Hop down and get that silkworm to work at once. Tell her to spin as she's never spun before. Our lives depend on it. And the same applies to you, Miss Spider. Hurry on down. Start spinning. Chapter 22. In a few moments, everything was ready. It was very quiet now on the top of the peach. There was nobody in sight except the earthworm. One half of the earthworm, looking like a great, thick, juicy pink sausage, lay innocently in the sun for all the sea coils to see. The other half of him was dangling down the tunnel. James was crouched close beside the earthworm in the tunnel entrance, just below the surface, waiting for the first seagull. He had a loop of silk string in his hand. The old green grasshopper and the ladybug were further down the tunnel, holding onto the earthworm's tail, ready to pull him quickly out of danger as soon as James gave the word. And far below, in the great hollow stone of the peach, the glowworm was lighting up the room so that the two spinners, the silkworm and Miss Spider, could see what they were doing. The centipede was down there too, exhorting them both frantically to greater efforts, and every now and again James could hear his voice coming up faintly from the depths of the depths, shouting, Spin, silkworm, spin, you great, fat, lazy brute, faster and faster, or we'll throw you to the sharks. Here comes the first seagull, whispered James. Keep still now, earthworm, keep still. The rest of you get ready to pull. Oh, please don't let him spike me, begged the earthworm. Oh, I won't, shh. Out of the corner of one eye, James watched the seagull as it came swooping down toward the earthworm. Then suddenly, it was so close that he could see its small black eyes and its curved beak, and the beak was open, ready to grab a nice piece of flesh out of the earthworm's back. Pull, shouted James. The old green grasshopper and the ladybug gave the earthworm's tail an enormous tug, and like magic, the earthworm disappeared into the tunnel. At the same time, up went James's hands, and the seagull flew right into the loop of silk that he was holding. The loop, which had been cleverly made, tightened just the right amount, but not too much, around its neck, and the seagull was captured. Hooray! Shouted the old green grasshopper, peering out of the tunnel. Well done, James! Up flew the seagull, with James playing out the silk string as it went. He gave it about 50 yards and then tied the string to the stem of the peach. Next one, he shouted, jumping back into the tunnel. Up you get again, earthworm. Bring up some more silk, centipede. Oh, I don't like this at all, wailed the earthworm. It just missed me. I even felt the wind on my back as it was swishing past. Shh, whispered James. Keep still, here comes another one. So they did it again. And again, and again, and again, and again. And the seagulls kept coming, and James caught them, one after the other, and tethered them to the peach stem. 100 seagulls, he shouted, wiping the sweat from his face. Keep growing, they cried. Keep going, James. 200 seagulls. 300 seagulls. 400 seagulls. The sharks, as though sensing they were in danger of losing the prey, were hurling themselves at the Peach much furiously than ever, and the Peach was sinking lower and still lower in the water. 500 seagulls, James shouted. Silkworm says she's out of silk, yelled the centipede from below. She said she can't keep it much longer, nor can Miss Spider. Tell them we got to, James answered. They can't stop now. We're lifting, somebody shouted. No, we're not. I felt it. Put on another single, quick. Quiet, everybody, quiet. Here comes one now. This was the 501st seagull, and the movement that James caught it in a moment. James caught it and tethered it to the stem with all the others. The whole enormous Peach suddenly started rising slowly out of the water. Look out, here we go. Hold on, boys. Then it stopped, and it hung there. It hovered and swayed, but it would go no higher. The bottom of it was just touching the water. It was delicately balanced like a scale that needed only a tiny push to tip it one way or the other. One more will do, shouted the old green grasshopper, looking out the tunnel. We're almost there. And now came the big moment. Quickly, the 502nd seagull was caught and harnessed by the Peach stem. Then suddenly, slowly, magically, like some fabulous golden balloon, with all the seagulls straining at the strings above, the giant Peach rose, dripping out the water, and began climbing towards the heavens. Chapter 23. In a flash, everybody was up top. Oh, it's beautiful, they cried. What a marvelous feeling. Goodbye, sharks. Oh boy, this is the way to travel. Miss Spider, who was literally squealing with excitement, grabbed the centipede by the waist, and the two of them started dancing around and around the Peach stem together. The earthworm stood up on his tail and did a sort of wiggle of joy by himself. The old green grasshopper kept jumping higher and higher into the air. The ladybug rushed over and shook James warmly by the hand. The glowworm, who, at the best of times, was a very shy and silent creature, sat glowing with pleasure near the tunnel entrance. Even the silkworm, looking white and thin and completely exhausted, came creeping out of the tunnel to watch this miraculous ascent. Up and up and up they went, and soon they were high as the top of a church steeple above the ocean. I'm a bit worried about this Peach, James said to the others, as soon as the dancing and shouting had stopped. I wonder how much damage those sharks have done underneath. It's quite impossible to tell from here. Why don't I go over the side and make it an inspection? Miss Spider said. It'll be no trouble at all, I assure you. And without waiting for an answer, she quickly produced a length of silk thread and attached it to the end of the Peach stem. I'll be back in a jiffy, she said, and then she walked calmly over to the edge of the Peach and jumped off, paying out the thread behind her as she fell. The others crowded anxiously around the place where she'd gone over. Wouldn't it be dreadful if the thread broke? The ladybug said. There was a rather long silence. Are you all right, Miss Spider? Shouted the old green grasshopper. Yes, thank you, her voice answered from below. I'm coming up now. And she came up, climbing foot over foot up the silk thread, and at the same time tucking the thread back cleverly into her body as she climbed it past. Is it all full? They asked her. Is it all eaten away? Are there great holes in it everywhere? Miss Spider clambered back to the deck with a pleased but rather puzzled look on her face. You won't believe this, she said, but actually there's hardly any damage done at all. The Peach is almost untouched. There are a few tiny pieces out of it here and there, but nothing more. Oh, you must be mistaken, James told her. Of course she's mistaken, the centipede said. I promise you I'm not, Miss Spider answered. But there's hundreds and hundreds of sharks around us. They churned in the water into froth. We saw their great mouths opening and shutting. I don't care what you saw, Miss Spider answered. They certainly didn't do much damage to the Peach. Then why did we start sinking? The centipede asked. Perhaps we didn't start sinking, the old green grasshopper suggested. Perhaps we were all so frightened that we simply imagined it. This, in point of fact, was closer to the truth than any of them knew. A shark, you see, has an extremely long, sharp nose, and its mouth is set very awkwardly underneath its face for a long way back. This makes it more or less impossible to get its teeth into a vast, smooth, curved surface such as the side of a peach. Even if the creature turns to get in the way, even if the creature turns on its back, it still can't do it, because the nose always gets in the way. Have you ever seen a small dog trying to get its teeth into an enormous ball? Then you'll be able to imagine roughly how it was like with the sharks and the peach. It must have been some kind of magic, the ladybug said. Those holes must have healed up by themselves. Oh, look! Look, there's a ship below us, shouted James, and everybody rushed to the side and peered over. Not one of them had seen a ship before. It looks like a big one. It's got 3 funnels. You can even see the people on the decks. Let's wave at them. Do you think they can see us? Neither James nor the others knew it, but the ship that was passing beneath them was actually the Queen Mary, sailing out of the English Channel on her way to America. And on the bridge of the Queen Mary, the astonished captain was standing with a group of his officers, all of them gaping at the great round ball hovering overhead. I don't like it, the captain said. Nor do I, said the first officer. Do you think they're following us? Said the second officer. I tell you I don't like it, mumbled the captain. It could be dangerous, the first officer said. That it is, cried the captain. It's a secret weapon. Holy cat, send a message to the Queen at once. The country must be warned, and give them my telescope. The first officer handed his telescope to the captain. The captain put it up to his eye. There are birds everywhere, he cried. The whole sky's teemed with birds. What in the world are they doing? And wait a second. There are people on it. I can see them moving. Right, let me focus. It looks like a small boy in short trousers. Yes, I can distinctly see a boy in short trousers standing up there. And there's a giant ladybug. Wait a minute, Captain, the first officer said. And a colossal green grasshopper? Captain, the first officer said. Captain, please. And a mammoth spider? Oh dear, he's been at the whiskey again, whispered the second officer. And an simply enormous centipede, screamed the captain. Call the ship's doctor, the first officer said. Our captain's not well. A moment later, the great green ball disappeared in the cloud, and the people on the ship never saw it again. That's the end of chapter 23. We'll see you the next time.